Thank you, Tom. So my job for the rest of tonight is to bring the patients to the doctors. So therefore, what does that make me? The nurse, exactly. So I am the nurse. The nurse does not belong in the doctor's office right now. I'm going to go back here, but I'll be introing the patients. So the first patient that we will be bringing up to the doctor's office is Eric Severinghouse, who founded a company called SimpleRelevance. SimpleRelevance is a machine learning platform that ingests your customer data to provide clear, actionable recommendations for digital marketing messages. And just so everyone knows how this is going to work tonight, so the patient, in this case, starting with Eric, we've got 3 more patients after him, is going to pitch his growing pain, and then he has a primary physician, which is the doctor here, Mohan Sani, Dr. Sani, and he's going to prescribe his business medication solution, but then we're going to ask the other doctors for their second opinions. And then lastly, as Tom said, we're going to kick it to the audience for you to either share your remedies, maybe you've experienced the growing pain, or perhaps you have the cure. So starting with Eric, please welcome him to the stage. Oh, yeah. One last nurse detail. There you go.
Fantastic, thanks. All right, well, thank you, Mohan, for being my doctor, and to the rest of you for the second opinion. So my name's Eric Severinghouse. I'm the founder and CEO of SimpleRelevance. Very quickly, what SimpleRelevance does. You know, the actual description was a little bit of a mouthful, right? Fundamentally, what we're a machine learning platform, makes digital marketing much smarter. So let me give you an example of that, all right? We've got a couple employees, Joe and Bailey. If Joe and Bailey each log into their Netflix accounts, they're going to get very different recommendations from Netflix around what they might be interested in watching, right? This is based on who they are, based on what they've watched before. The reality is that Netflix has invested over $100 million in that system to help understand Joe and Bailey and help them find the content that they're going to be most interested in. Now, what happens when Joe browses the rest of the internet? Just about every place else besides Netflix. He goes to these large sites, places like the New York Times, Nordstrom, and Bass Pro Shops, right? And we could have picked just about any 3 brands that you could imagine. So what happens when Bailey goes to the exact same sites? You would hope that similar to Netflix, Bailey's going to see very different content, right? But being that we all use the internet, you guys all know the answer, which is that she doesn't. She sees literally the exact same content, all right? There might be small tweaks here or there, but for all everybody talks about personalization, the reality is the web is still a long way from it. My favorite part of this is actually if you look at the email at the bottom, which is something that they sent to Bailey, they said, "Welcome outdoorsman." So, you know, even though she's a female, they're interacting with her the exact same way they would any other customer. All right, so SimpleRelevance, we're a machine learning problem. We help big brands solve this problem. We've got a number of Fortune 500 clients and other partners. One of our primary case studies, and we've got a number of these, USA Today Travel. So prior to using SimpleRelevance, USA Today Travel, batching and blasting the same content to everybody, we integrated, we built an individual profile for each reader of USA Today Travel. Understand who likes going to the beach versus who likes going to the mountains, who likes ski vacations, you know, who likes Vegas trips. Send the right content to the right people. What we found, and these numbers are unbelievable, but what we found, we almost tripled the number of page views that they were getting through this.
So the nurse is just going to interject in the intercom to the doctors for a moment. If you want to see the slides, feel free to turn your chairs.
Thank you.
So sometimes the doctors need little tips and things like that.
We're waiting.
Sorry, I'm blocking you here.
Nurse's permission.
Yeah. These are the x-rays, I guess, or whatever.
There you go.
So anyway, we almost tripled the engagement rate. Click-through rates, again, 64%. We reduced bounce rate, reduced manual effort, all kinds of other great things that came out of this. We got a number of other case studies. Most of them are under NDA. This is one that we're actually allowed to share. We've done this with a number of clients, big and small. Again, there's a few logos that we're allowed to talk about, many more that we're not. We typically see about $20 of increased revenue for every dollar that our clients spend with us. And so ultimately, this comes to our question, right? Which is that we're trying to figure out how to scale this business. And having taken Professor Sawhney's class, I know that he knows a tremendous amount about this. What we're trying to figure out is, so we have large companies that we work with, we have agency partners that we work with, and then we have white label solutions. So we have platforms that already have clients that want to use our capabilities. We're still a reasonably small team, so we're growing very quickly, but we're still a reasonably small team with sort of limited resources. And so we're trying to figure out on the one hand how to balance being opportunistic and going out and finding these opportunities and continuing to grow versus on the other hand, not trying to be too many things to too many people and trying to make sure that we stay focused and execute and sort of cross that chasm to really get into the enterprise growth that we need. So that at heart is our question. How do we effectively scale our strategic customer acquisition? How do we balance this across direct sales, partnerships, white labels, agencies, et cetera? So thank you.
Thanks, Eric. Fascinating business, and what's very clear is that you have a compelling value proposition, and which you validated. So the good news is that the product is good and the product works. The disease that you're afflicted with is what I call GTMitis, and it's go-to-market problem. And this is very common. I'm trying to draw some general implications here. When startup companies are targeting the enterprise market or large clients, the usual problem that you confront is sales cycles are long, 12 to 18 months. And it takes an enormous amount of effort to land an account. And it requires a lot of Salesforce dollars and very highly paid salespeople, half to 2/3 of which will flame out and not produce. So how many 200, 250K salespeople can you afford, to scale these enterprise accounts? So that's the downside of going, so those are your channel options. One option is to go direct to your enterprise clients, all states of the world, the USA Today of the world, sell account after account after account. The good news there is that you are directly in front of the client, you're actually learning from them, and you will maximize your value capture because you're able to extract most value through this. The second and the third channel are partner mediated, right? And this is what I call OPC. You've heard of OPM, which is other people's money. OPC is other people's customers. So what you do is you leverage off other people's customer bases and going to market. And you can do this in two ways in your case. The first way you can do this is to go through ad agencies. Now, ad agencies serve many clients. And if you can make your offering part of the agency's offering, you get two benefits. One is that you're able to scale to their client base. You're absolved of the responsibility of doing the selling. And the second is that your solution will, to make the best out of it, the client really needs some advice and consulting. It's not just it's not just a tool, because they say a fool with a tool is still a fool. So you need some sort of elbow grease to go with that, and that's what the agency can provide as a full solution to the client. The downside of that is clearly you become an ingredient and you lose the direct client connection. The upside is you get scale. The third option is to partner with platform companies. So these may be, digital marketing platforms, the Eloquas of the world, the Marketos of the world, the people who are building marketing platforms, and essentially embed yourself as Intel Insight as an ingredient, and that's the white label strategy, right? So there again, the benefit is that you become a platform. You get sold in as part of the platform. You get scale through their client base, but the downside again is that you are just a white label, and a white label means that your brand is not in front of the customer until and unless you can have a very clear powered by SimpleRelevance, whenever the customer sees the offering. So what should you do? And I think you phrased this problem. The way to manage these trade-offs is to do an economic analysis, which is the trade-off is the following. Some of these strategies will put food on the table quickly and allow you to get revenues quickly, but are not scalable. And the flip side is there are other go-to-market channels, particularly the mediated, the last, second, and the third strategy, that will take, the first strategy takes longer to execute, but in the long run produces more value for you. The second and third strategy, which are partner mediated, will put food on the table quickly because you're able to scale up quickly. But in the long run, you're going to get pennies on the dollar relative to what you could if you had the direct client contact. So what's my recommendation? I suggest two things. One is that you have to be opportunistic at start and strategic later. Start by exploring all these channels, because the one thing that you still don't know is where you're going to get more traction. So you have to make probes with all these three go-to-market mechanisms to see which scales better. And by the way, I would divide this into the direct versus mediated. Mediated, again, has a two-part option. But as you start to see and learn about the trade-offs, then you may dial up or dial down the channel that seems to be working better. The second thing I would recommend is that you take a two-phase approach. That you start with a crutch, which means that you start with the partnering, which starts to get you some customers, and then eventually throw the crutch away and learn how to run. So you start with the B2B2C approach, but eventually go to the B2C approach when you've got enough traction in the marketplace. So by all means, I suggest that the platform partnership and the agency partnerships is something you should pursue in the short run, but balance it with the direct to market with the customers. And don't forget the value ultimately of the client relationship that you want with the client and the brand coming in front of the client. So I would say be opportunistic to begin with and fine tune as you go along. That's my prescription.
Thank you.
Eric, does your health insurance cover those ideas?
Those were fantastic.
Okay. Any second opinions from the other doctors? So hearing what Eric's going through, any other thoughts or ideas that you'd like to share?
Yeah, Eric, I'll just share one that's really more of analogy. So I'm going to go off-label in my prescription here. But you're sort of in search of this this ideal customer that allow you to scale. That's what I'm hearing, right? But in your own introduction, you pointed to a fact that in communicating with various customer sets, these companies who are going to be your clients are not that personal. For example, Outdoors Man, right? There might be something to take from the P&G model here about focusing on her. I'm not sure that it's a her that you're targeting, but an awareness of who that person is or what that enterprise sale channel is going to help you. That's clearly going to be something that's going to make you more efficient as you cast these nets that Mohan talked about.
So focusing more on who the specific buyer is at the places where we're going to create revenue. Sure, absolutely.
What I would like to ask you is, you sent us a growth challenge to all of us, and the nurse duly sent it to us. So I was reminded of a situation where I would go in, talk to the nurse for half an hour, and the nurse would put down the diagnosis as stomach pain. And then when the doctor comes in and talks to the patient says they have a headache. So what is it? Is it the stomach pain or the headache that you're currently having problems with? What I meant by stomach pain is what you have here, which is also a fascinating problem for startups. You're saying that you're dealing with many vendors and many partners who are currently siloed off. And what you're trying to do is integrate these partners and vendors to create an integrated a platform that delivers superior service to your customers. Except that how do you communicate this value that these partners have to be integrated? And as you correctly pointed out, that and this is very typical, you're saying that the partners we are seeking don't realize the limitations of their siloed data. And that is so common. I remember this 25, 30 years ago, we used to go into companies. There was a guy who was doing advertising, another guy who was in charge of all kinds of sales promotion activities, a third guy who was in charge of the sales force. and they were not talking to each other, and each one of them went off and did their own thing. It's much later that companies found out that it is both more efficient and more effective to actually integrate all these different forms of marketing communication. And I remember during that time we had to convince some companies to do this, and what we did was create two simple case studies. One case study where this company did not integrate any of these activities, and the other company which seamlessly integrated all these activities. And we were able to compare and contrast and show to the customers that we were trying to persuade how integration makes your marketing both effective and efficient in terms of the ROI. So a couple of case studies, if you can, it could be even hypothetical case studies, but I find that this is a very powerful way of communicating value propositions when you compare and contrast one thing over the other.
Terrific.
The disadvantage of going last is you don't get to add too much. But I guess I agree totally with the advice that you got from Mohan. And the thing that I would add to that is in terms of deciding whether you're going to go out with a branded product and go after that customer base or a white label product, I would really look closely at the margins that are delivered by each of those and into which of those segments you have the best sales team to sell.
Terrific. So, Eric, why don't you put the question that you had on the last slide up, just for all these physicians' assistants to see. So we're going to ask all of you, because you all have tremendous experience in lots of different things. You've gone through ups and downs. What ideas or advice does anyone in the audience have for Eric about how to effectively scale strategic partnerships? Yes, let's start with Howard over in the far corner over there.
Hi, Howard. Want a microphone?
You have a very great brand on display, along with far larger brands as clients. You mentioned in one sentence that you have NDAs in place. Why are you signing NDAs if you want to be out there?
Because a lot of times we don't get a choice.
They don't give you a choice, but as long as you don't have that choice, you're going to be able to only tell part of that story. And you think you don't have the choice. One time, try no.
Yeah, no, I think that's a fair point. Thank you.
Okay, taking the tough approach. All right, how about over here with Fritz?
Okay, so this is with the analogy of the medical field. I'm going to give you a brand name prescription. Have you talked to Nielsen?
Nielsen IRI, the company?
Nielsen Corporation, which is doing big data in consumer space and doing a lot of other stuff. And I could see, from my limited perspective of being in the media, that I would love to find out what would be the hit television show. And I think your tool might do the trick. So.
Yeah, we actually do that with media. So what's interesting, the Netflix example, Netflix has now taken all that data, and that was what they used to build House of Cards. We're taking that same thing and helping large companies figure out what articles should they write, all that kind of thing. So absolutely, it's a space.
And I think that Nielsen, between their media properties and their online business, which they're trying to grow, and I don't have any unique, input in or names there that I could say, oh, go talk to so-and-so, but they're kind of here, kind of elsewhere, but just a thought.
Terrific. Well, Eric, thank you for being our first patient to enter the doctor's office.